writers and readers, I'm Christy Stratus, and today is another episode of Journal Jungle, a series where I tell you all about different literary magazines and literary journals, who might enjoy them, what kind of content they have, and that way you can see if you would like them without even having to buy them. And in this episode, we are doing Arts and Letters. First, I have to say that when I saw this in the mail this week, I was beyond thrilled. It was such an amazing surprise. I love Arts and Letters, so thank you so much, Arts and Letters, for sending this to me. Arts and Letters is a great literary journal, and it really is literary. All of these works are very literary. You have poetry, you have flash fiction, you have short stories. They now also have a really great contest called Unclassifiable, and the idea is to submit a short story that is absolutely no genre. You can't even pin it to any genre, and you don't know where it fits, but you know it's good, so this is a great contest to send it into. Going back to the journal itself, I really like Arts and Letters, specifically because it is literary, but also because it has a really good range of literary. It's not just highbrow, it's medium, it's regular short stories that if you want to see something in them, you can really delve deep into them, but you don't have to. And I think that that's my favorite kind, just because there's so much depth, but you have to be so careful how you craft it. If you craft it in a way that's inaccessible to just the average person who isn't into literary stuff, you could lose them, but you have to have that balance also. And that's what I did with Anatomy of a Darkened Heart. If you want to read psychological fiction, dark fiction, historical fiction, or if you want to delve deep into the book and look at all the metaphors and similes and the motifs, I put it all together so that you can read however you want to read it. So that's my favorite thing about Arts and Letters, the fact that it has such good variety. So if you're looking to see what is the latest in literary fiction, which a lot of people think are dying, but I completely disagree with that. If you want me to do a video on that, leave a comment down below. I have a lot to say about that. But anyway, literary fiction is far from dead. It's just different. So that being said, this is a really great journal that you should definitely check out. It only comes out, I believe, twice a year. They take their time really picking and choosing which stories they're going to put in here, and you can tell the effort that's put into it. Another great thing about this journal is there are no ads at all. It's completely dedicated to giving you its choice in the best fiction, short stories, poetry, everything I said. And the only two things that you're going to find in here are 2 advertisements for their own contests. So I really like that as well. I think it's fantastic. A lot of literary magazines are just loaded down with advertisements, and I totally understand that because they have to get funding, and it's tough in this day and age when everybody's doing stuff online to get funded. But this journal does not mess around. It's just the work, which I think is fantastic. So I'm going to try to keep this video short. I get really excited about literary fiction. I know I'm doing a whole series on fantasy, but you know, honestly, literary fiction is really where my heart lives. I love literary fiction. So I'm going to tell you just about 3 different pieces, and I'm not going to read them, of course, because these people worked really hard to get into this literary journal, so you're going to have to read the originals in this journal, but I just want to tell you a little bit about it so that you get to know what to expect. One of my favorite pieces in issue 32 is Monica Hileman's Fine Arts, which is short fiction. It's flash, and I really like it. One of the things I like so much about it is that it's in the second person point of view, which is very difficult to do. It is not commonly done, but we're seeing a resurgence of it lately, which is interesting. So it just shows you they go with the times too, so there's some trendiness here, but you know, it's very literary. It's difficult to connect to second person because it's constantly saying you instead of first person with. You know, I do this and I do that. Second person is tricky because when it's constantly saying you, it sort of seems to bring you out of the story because I'm not in that situation, so it kind of seems a little bit funny sometimes. It's one of the most difficult points of view to write in. So I really appreciate when someone can do it well. And in this piece, it's very short, but she uses every single word. And that's one of the other things you'll find in Arts and Letters. All of the pieces uses every single word to its advantage. You know what a stickler I am about that, so that's a really big deal to me. It takes you into a situation many of us have been in, whether or not to go and talk to somebody. When you see them sitting there, they look accessible, they look like they're looking at you, they look like they're interested in meeting you, but you are the one who has to make the first move. Do you do it or don't you? And I think this is especially valid because now in our culture of social media and really not talking to people one-on-one quite as much, it is becoming more and more difficult to communicate in person. And it's becoming more and more difficult to know what to expect from another person. So there's a lot more dealt with this. It's not as simple as that. One of the other things Hileman does brilliantly in this is she has the setting really work for her. So it takes place in an art gallery, and there's a more specific setting than that, but it's in an art gallery, and there are two pieces of art, and those two pieces of art are integrated in such a way that they show exactly the two different outcomes of how this could go. It's a lot for a tiny flash fiction piece. It is a great flash fiction piece. I love it. Again, it's Fine Arts by Monica Hileman. The next piece I want to talk about is a poetry piece. It's by Marianne Boruch. I'm very sorry if I mispronounced that. Is Boruch, and the piece is called Glint, and it is a really fresh, poetic take on what it's like when you first find out that you're pregnant. So you hear a lot like you were just a glint in my eye, you know, and that is going off that concept. This poem is really short again. It's very well written and it's concise. It's difficult to really tell you too much about it without giving a lot away, but it has an excellent comparison in it, a great metaphor to before a woman is pregnant and after when she wants to be pregnant. And I think it's just a brilliant take on it. And it's done in so few words, which I really, really appreciate. Beautiful piece of literature. It is freeform, and I think that if this author was selling a book of poetry, I would buy it. I really like it. The final piece that I liked the most in this edition was What She Could Not Save, and not is in parentheses, by Michelle Donahue. And this is a longer short story, but not that long. It's just a few pages. And it is one of the things that Arts and Letters encourages you to do is submit experimental literature. So this is not really, really experimental, but it does have a little bit experimental form. It has some bullet points and some lists throughout it. And the point of the whole piece is basically, and there's a lot more to it than this, but the idea is this woman saves things, and one of those things is she saves the lessons she learns, the ideas she learns by putting them in lists. She organizes her world in lists. And when you see these lists, you see they're very succinct, just 3 or fewer, sometimes 4, but 3 or fewer usually bullet points of what has happened, something major in her life, something very important. And the things she can and cannot save range from actual people, including herself, to smaller things, like things from her mother. I think that this piece is really brilliantly done. The lists work very, very well. There are some pieces you read that are experimental that really didn't need to be, and this is one of those pieces that has a particular format that really works for that piece. So I would say that without the format, it wouldn't be the same. I really loved the idea. It takes you through Delilah's life. That's the main character's name. And it takes you through very quickly and briefly, but you really get into it. I read it and I read it and I really got sucked in right away. So I would say the author did an excellent job in getting me involved with this character. Delilah is an immigrant and she starts out with a tough life, as it is, and as she works her way over to the US, her life never really gets easier. It's just one trial after another with small moments of happiness. It's a really tough life that I think a lot of people could actually relate to. And I think that so many feelings in this are summed up beautifully. These are feelings that I think we all have, and she sums them up in these different periods of her life in different ways. Ways where she's more hopeful, ways where she has totally given up and she just wants to hurt someone the way she has been hurt throughout her life. And I think that when you put the whole thing together, it's absolutely an amazing portrayal of life without the luxury of happiness, without the luxury of comfort. So many things that we take for granted. This is one of those pieces that will really bring you down to earth. And I love it. So I really think that you should pick up this issue number 32 of Arts and Letters. I love, love, love Arts and Letters in general, but this is a particularly good issue, and I'm lucky enough to own it now. So I really hope that you enjoyed this episode of Journal Jungle. I think you can clearly see that this is a journal that is great for writers and readers. You can learn so much from it about what's going on right now in literary fiction, and you can pick up a lot of different ways that you can improve your own writing. It'll open you up to brand new things in reading. Like this video, subscribe to my channel to see more Journal Jungle. If you have any requests as to which journals and literary magazines you'd like to see me talk about, leave your suggestions in the comments, and I'll see you soon.